Life's Work, A Moral Case for Choice. I'm Susanna Woodhead, and this is Bookmarks. Hello and welcome to Bookmarks. I'm your host, Susanna Woodhead. In the never-ending debate over abortion, religion has traditionally been associated with the pro-life side, which is dominated by Christians. But in a new book, Life's Work, A Moral Case for Choice, Dr. Willie Parker explains why his Christian faith motivates him to not only support abortion rights, but to perform abortions himself. Dr. Parker joins us today via Skype. He is a board-certified OBGYN who currently provides abortion care for women in 5 states and is the former medical director of Planned Parenthood, Metropolitan Washington, D.C. He is the chair of the Board of Physicians for Reproductive Health and a board member of the Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice. And joining us to critique the book is Kristen Hawkins, president of Students for Life of America. She has appeared on Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, EWTN, Family Talk with Dr. James Dobson, and the Christian Broadcasting Network. She is a frequent contributor to The Ablaze, Town Hall, and Life News, and has also been quoted in the Washington Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, and FoxNews.com. She is the author of Courageous Students Abolishing Abortion in This Lifetime. Thank you both for joining us. So, Dr. Parker, could you give us in a nutshell the main thesis of your book?
Sure. Thanks for having me on.
Good to have you.
Life's Work, A Moral Choice, is really a statement of the fact that women making decisions about their lives, health, including whether or not to continue a pregnancy, are not morally, despite some agreeing with them, based primarily on their own religious beliefs or opinions. Now, I personally don't but again, I intentionally don't call my book a Christian argument for choice, even though I'm a Christian, because I simply don't presume to speak for all Christians. But because I am a Christian, I want to indicate that on the issue of abortion, like many others, that there's no single Christian on this issue pertaining to the lives of women. Women are equal in their humanity and equal in their ability to make decisions about their lives.
And Kristen Hawkins, what is your critique of the book?
Some things you talked about in your book about women not understanding our reproductive systems and not having enough knowledge. And I totally agree with that. I mean, that's why groups like ours, when we go on campuses, we talk about holistic, science, evidence-based healthcare, natural family planning, groups like FEM. However, as promised, there are definitely some places where I couldn't disagree with you more. Part of the book actually reads more kind of like a conspiracy novel. Actually, here on page 164, I just had this, I read this passage that you wrote, and I was just so upset by some of the accusations that you made towards our movement. For someone who repeatedly said that, you know, your clinics are a place of non-judgment, you're not judging women, you do a whole lot of judging for the pro-life or anti-abortion side, where you know, right here in this quote, and I'm going to read the quote of, their goal is not actually to curtail abortion services for poor women and women of color. It's to limit the access to abortion for all women, including especially white women. Because a thing all too many white anti-abortion activists really want, which they can't say out loud, is for white women to have more babies in order to push back against the browning of America. And then you go on to talk about how the Tea Party was formed because of Barack Obama's skin color. I mean, these are things that are categorically false. No one in the pro-life movement or the anti-abortion movement, whatever you call it, advocates for abortion because of someone's skin color. The Tea Party was formed as a reaction to Obamacare and the disastrous policies of President Obama. And so that passage really struck me is why you would bring that up. But you talked again about the people, the antis, as you mentioned, people on my side of the issue of over and over again, you talking about how these are white men. And on my standpoint, when I'm on college campuses, when we have 2,000 young people at our national conference every year, this is a mostly female movement. Look at the leaders of the national pro-life organizations. They're female, they're young. And actually we found in statistics to show that young women are more likely to be pro-life than young men. You talked about Kermit Gosnell and kind of painted him as an outlier. And you talked about laws that would require your abortion facilities to adhere to the same surgical standards as ambulatory surgical centers, and how these are trap laws because they're unnecessary. But I couldn't help recall, the story of Lakeisha Williams, who died in Cleveland during her abortion. The emergency services were actually delayed because preterm abortion facility was on the 3rd floor, and there was a small malfunctioning elevator that they couldn't get up to her with the gurney. And then when they needed to intubate her, they weren't actually able to even take the gurney and fully recline it in the elevator. It was so small. 2010, an abortion facility in Michigan, there were 17 preborn babies, their remains, along with patient records with names, history, insurance information, along with bloody surgical materials.
I think we better give Dr. Parker a chance to respond. Dr. Parker?
I am actually glad that my discussant read the book, and I am actually comfortable and understand why she would take issue with the things that I stated. But I stand by what I stated because I invoke the principle that Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan said when he said that everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but no one's entitled to their own facts. Given that my discussant read the book and then she disagreed, that we can have honest disagreement.
That's right.
Because the Mahatma Gandhi says honest disagreement is the beginning of progress. So, I would like to move from opinion and conjecture and the fact that the facts that I state may feel inflammatory to someone, but I don't indict or label individuals. That's why I essentially say anti-abortion versus pro-life, because I think part of the problem is the language is with regard to the pro-life, pro-choice narrative doesn't lend itself very well to meaningful dialogue.
I agree with you.
But when you describe it
I agree with
as anti-reproductive rights and pro-reproductive rights, then we can have honest disagreement with no effort to disrespect anyone or to devalue their honest or sincerely held beliefs.
I think the question is, and I think you said this in a previous interview, the question is pro-abortion or anti-abortion. And I'm entirely comfortable with using those labels because I think it's very important that we have an honest discussion. Too many times when I'm on a campus speaking with someone, they'll want to label themselves pro-choice. And I'll say, well, so you think abortion is moral, is okay, should be legal, and they don't want to say that. And so I said, well, you actually you need to make a decision here. You need to go on the record. One of the things in your book, you talked about how life is a spectrum. I mean, we clearly know, and embryology textbooks clearly tell us, that life begins at conception, that there's no other point when an egg meets a sperm that a whole unique human being that never existed before and will never exist again has come into existence. We know life has an ending, so therefore it must have a beginning somewhere. Do you not believe that?
Well, I think you're on the right road to achieving clarity by bringing more precision to the language. Mm-hmm. But when you say life, in terms of as an event, where I take issue is you say life begins at conception. But in order for a conception to be alive, you can't have a dead egg or a dead sperm embryologically and get a live zygote.
Sure,
So
but those are
if
parts.
What you mean
those
by
aren't
life
a whole.
is vitality and reproduction and energy consumption. Sperm are alive and eggs are alive. And so life can't begin at conception.
It absolutely
what
does.
I think you actually implied to say is when you say a unique human being, you're absolutely right. Because women don't have puppies. Human reproduction results in human beings and human entities being established when conception occurs. But what people really mean when they say life begins at conception, they're actually saying that personhood begins at conception. I've never argued that a fetus is not a human being. But what I argue is that it's not a person with equal moral standing to the woman carrying it.
So, Dr. Parker, when does life begin?
Well, life began a long time ago, and life, as we describe it, whether you believe that it's an evolutionary process or the process of creation, and I don't think those are mutually exclusive terms, but the process of endings and beginnings started a long time ago, and that conception results in a unique human being that is a person each time somebody conceives. Human reproduction is very inefficient in terms of 12% of all people then are spontaneously aborted, right? And then that means that if the process is totally divine and driven by some purpose, that it's a very inefficient process. So that's a clash between the science of reproduction and the moral understanding of reproduction. So I think in order for us to have an honest disagreement, we have to be clear about what we're talking about. And so if you mean by life, when did it begin? The process of reproduction began a long time ago, and it's going to be going on a long time after you and I are gone.
But when did my life begin, Dr. Parker?
I can't answer that. Your life began as a person when you were born. But in terms of, if you mean when your DNA complement was established, you're right. It was the moment of conception. I'm sorry.
And so you believe that personhood of a human being, so you're not a person with rights until the moment of birth, until you emerge from your mother's vaginal canal?
That's what the law says. That's what many religious traditions
That's actually not what the law says in many cases. You have laws like in California, the Lacey and Connor Peterson law, where recognizes the personhood of the child. If a mother is murdered in an act of violence and she's pregnant, the perpetrator.
What you're alluding to is indirect attempts to confirm personhood by upcharging murder charges of a woman killed. But if you don't have a statute where someone is charged with murder if somebody loses a fetus, if the mother lives, and if you do, it happens from state to state, but it is not the national law.
What's the difference, though? Like, what's the difference 5 minutes before I give birth to my child? What makes the difference there? That 5 minutes before I give birth to my child, he's not a person, and then as soon as he emerges, he is a person?
Let me ask you a question. I don't intend to be disrespectful, but I want to ask you a question, then I'm going to make a point. Is an acorn the same as an oak tree?
An acorn is an oak tree.
Is it the same? It is an oak tree. So if someone steps on an acorn, it's the same as knocking down a 100-year-old redwood person by the law.
You can't not make that analogy because we're talking about human beings who are made in the image of God.
No, what we're talking about, we're talking about the importance
that
of
human beings have value because not of what we can
do
or what we can become in our life, but simply because we are human beings, we have value because we were made in God's image.
So trees don't have value?
trees do have value, but they don't have the same value as human beings.
All right, and you're right. And human beings have value. My only point is by trying to make an analogy about stages development and that they matter. What I'm saying is, you're saying that a fetus is a person, and I'm saying that a fetus is not a person, because if a fetus is a person, it has equal value and moral standing with the woman carrying.
Yeah,
So
I think that's the crux of the argument. And that's the crux of our disagreement here.
Than the woman carrying it.
That is the crux of our disagreement here, is what is the moral standing of that human being residing in his or her mother? And when we look at the pro-life movement and we look at what we're fighting for and advocating for in the pro-life movement, we believe that that fetus does have personhood rights, and that, I mean, obviously I'm a woman, so I believe that women have the right to make the decision about their own bodies. I believe that men have the right
You could be a woman and believe that you have the right to make your decision, but the problem with
But your decision about your body ends when it comes in conflict. Your rights to do what you want with your body end when it comes in conflict with someone else's rights. And so that's what the real sadness about Roe and Doe has done. It's pitted women against children in our country. And it said, well, who's more important here? When really we're talking about two unique persons who both have the right to live.
Roe did, but it said that you, as someone standing outside a woman's life, her body, and her experience, can't have more of an interest in the pregnancy that she's carrying that you have in her. So let me ask this. If I say that this is a person, and what it means to be a person is to have rights and a right to life, how can you give rights to a fetus that's a person that's inside of another person without taking away the rights from the person to give them to the fetus that's inside of her? How does that work? What does it mean to be a person? When is a woman not a person?
We believe, so at the moment of conception, a unique, whole, living human being has come into existence. That being will never exist again. He or she has never existed before. At that moment, that human being is a person with rights. And we don't believe that your environment or where you live or the fact that you're dependent on your mother means that you're less of a person. Because to be honest with you, I couldn't leave my 2-year-old daughter at home and have a reasonable expectation that she would survive. Heck,
your daughter's a 2-year-old.
What's the difference?
And that's different from a fetus.
What's the difference between the 2-year-old and the fetus, the child in the womb?
Well, there's a lot of a 2-year-old can breathe on its own. A fetus cannot breathe on its own, right? And so what's clear, I agree with you. We have an honest disagreement.
That's right.
About the status of personhood of a fetus. I agree with you wholehearted. A fetus is a human being, because a woman cannot give birth to anything but a human being.
That's right.
But a fetus is not. A fetus has moral weight as a human being. It has value. But where we differ is a fetus can't have more value than a woman carrying it, right? And what that means is, even if you value fetuses more than the woman carrying it, what it means to be a person is that you don't get to weigh in on the decision of that woman. And so what I'm in this disagreement, I'm glad, even though we're having a spirited conversation, I'm glad that we are having a respectful one, because where we go when we have honest disagreement is you're entitled to fight as hard as you can for the laws that will one day declare a fetus a person, and I will fight as hard as I can to make sure that a woman has bodily integrity and can make decisions about her health and her life. And this is precisely how we deal with this issue. But we shouldn't be dealing with it by people standing in front of clinics, shaming women, shooting abortion providers, and shooting people who are at abortion clinics.
All right, let's take some questions from our viewers. Jackie Hansen would like to know, at what point during gestation would you refuse to perform an abortion?
Okay, well, I provided outside the womb with assistance or not, that they have a compelling interest in protecting the life of that. And so I abide by the law, and I don't do termination beyond 25 weeks.
How,
Now,
but there are children who survive at 22 weeks, 21 weeks, and 5 days, and 6 days.
but that wasn't the question. The question is, up to what point do I abortion? And I said, to the legal limits of the law, and the law says that a woman, up to the point of viability, that decision between a woman and her health care provider. But let's talk about what the real issue is. 88% of abortions that happen in the first 12 weeks of pregnancy.
Right.
The 1% of abortions that happen after 2 weeks are in the context of severe fetal anomalies that are incompatible with life. So let's have an abortion here, because the majority of abortions happen when there's in no way as possible viability of that pregnancy.
Okay. So we also have a question from Lester Briggs. He would like to know, what Christian arguments against abortion did you hear while growing up? Why do you now think they're wrong?
Well, I didn't hear any Christian argument against abortion growing up, because my Christian experience predates the whole pro-life, pro-choice narrative, which began in 1980. And that's another issue about the whole notion of pro-life. It's people who hold that view, they act as that view has been around since the established Christianity, or even in the ancient text of the Bible. So people will go back and pull verses out and say that those verses refer to abortion, but they're pulling it out of context. So I was not taught that abortion was wrong, but in my community, women who had unplanned pregnancy continued to pregnancy, so it was sort of implied. So for the first 12 years of my practice, I did not do it until I thought more deeply about them. I explored for myself what Christianity actually says about abortion, and it says nothing about abortion.
So, Dr. Parker, are you saying that unless the Bible expressly condemns something, then it condones it?
No, I'm saying you can't pull verses out of context and say that they refer to something that they don't refer to.
Well, then I don't understand what your point in bringing that up, because the Bible doesn't expressly condemn gay bashing, but we know that's not okay. The truth is that even if Scripture doesn't expressly mention abortion, we know that it affirms the humanity of the preborn child, because Scripture tells us that humans have value because they are made in the image of God, and because humans are made in the image of God, shedding innocent blood is wrong and is forbidden. And since abortion intentionally kills an innocent human being, it is wrong.
So, okay, you both established that humanity of Thesis. Can you answer for me? When is a woman not a person?
I'm sorry.
When does a woman lose the right to make a decision about her health and her body?
I believe Dr. Parker's asking you. I believe Dr. Parker's asking you, when is a woman not a woman? When does a woman no longer become a woman, a person? Your gender
is determined at the moment of conception. When,
That's not what I'm asking you.
I think he's asking you, when is a woman no longer a person? He stated earlier, I believe, and you can correct me, we're having a little bit of trouble hearing you, but I believe he stated that that when does a woman's rights end? When is she no longer a person, in reference to the child that's inside of her?
She never loses her personhood rights. She's always a person. From the moment of conception, she is a person. And when she's carrying that child within her, she's also a person. And what we advocate for, and we talk about in the pro-life or anti-abortion movement, we're not saying that the fetus's personhood, the fetus, the unborn child's rights are over the mother's. We're saying that they're equal and that they should be on equal footing and they should be equally considered because they both are human beings made in the image of God and therefore both have value.
Dr. Parker, did that answer? Go ahead.
When there's a dispute, when a woman doesn't want to continue a pregnancy, but the rest of society says that because they have a position of pro-life, that she should, who gets to make that decision for her?
So I think
women can make lots of decisions about their bodies. No one in the pro-life movement argues as to how a woman, decides what career she should have, or what school or education that she should have, or who she should marry, or how she wants to live her life. But your rights to your body, your rights come into conflict. When they come into conflict with someone else's rights, it's not unlimited. I can't choose to do certain things.
Your ability to tell a woman what to do with her body simply because you care about her feet, when does she lose her right to say no to you?
That's not a right that anyone has. What I'm saying is no one has the right to determine that they should be able to kill an innocent human being. That's not a right that any of us have. That's why I don't believe in abortion. That's why I don't believe in the death penalty, because there could be an innocent person. I don't believe that innocent human beings, we have the right to ever kill an innocent human being.
Dr. Parker?
I applaud you in your opposition to the death penalty, but what if when a woman is pregnant or her life is, who makes that decision for her?
That is not a decision that I think any of us have the right to make. We never have a right to take away the life of an innocent human being.
Okay, that's all we have time for. We'd like to thank OBGYN Dr. Willie Parker for joining us to discuss his book, and Kristen Hawkins of Students for Life of America for offering her critique. And thank you for watching Bookmarks. I'm Susanna Woodhead. We'll see you next time.